Here are 3 powerful radio principles. Don't get distracted by the word radio. Just listen. Tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. These come from a book written by Valerie who's an author of 5 books about how to be powerful in the space of broadcast. Things have changed over the last 25 years. So all of us now have access to the tools needed to amplify our voices out into the world. And with that access comes opportunity and responsibility. And today I'm going to start a conversation to help us broaden our sense of what's possible for us in terms of getting better at this. And also the link between what worked back in old radio days and what still works today and how fascinating that is. One of the things that Valerie says is there are no boring stories, there are only boring storytellers. Indeed, it's the way we tell stories that really capture people's imaginations and their attention. So I really hope that from this conversation, everybody who listens, especially swellcasters, we get better at what we're doing. We get more creative, we get more audacious, we take more risks, and we really settle into the fact that we are, in fact, using our voices to create content and create community and grow our audiences. Valerie Geller is here with us to really dig into this conversation. Valerie, welcome. I know you are committed to this space. You've been in it for so many years. You've trained in 35 countries. You are considered one of the most influential women in radio. And as sort of the godmom of this world, because you really are somebody who's helped producers and personalities and journalists all understand how they could be better at what they're doing. I'm wondering if you could first speak to the big changes that you witnessed. Just kind of bullet them a little bit for me. What has been the biggest change? And I'm not talking about technology because we know that's changed, but in terms of what is required now of people who want to become powerful communicators, what's on our plate now that wasn't on our plate before? Because it has changed, and you probably have changed the way you train people and the way you've helped people prepare for opportunities or prepare for new jobs. I would love to get that sense from you first. And thanks again, and welcome to Swell.
What a great question, and thank you for having me on. Basically, what's new, and I train broadcasters and podcasters all over the world to communicate more powerfully. And the number one thing that is different today in listening audiences is the very, very short attention span. You know, people have the attention span of a flea. And so what we need to do now is instantly let somebody know what's in it for them. Engage immediately. And I put up the model I work with, and again, it's in Beyond Powerful Radio. But the first one is focus. What is it you want to talk about? What are your topics? Mostly health, heart, money, connectedness, the things that people are really, really interested in. What matters to you? So what is your topic? The second thing is engage. What's in it for the listener or the viewer? Why should I listen to this? Or if you can imagine, every time you hit a microphone or you stand up to give a talk or even just do your podcast, answer the question, here's why you need to listen to this. And if you can answer that, then you can engage immediately. The other thing is to talk to one individual at a time. Radio, podcasting, audio, very, very intimate medium. And you'll notice in commercials, do you want to lose weight? Do you want to grow hair? Do you want to have a better lawn? Do you want to save money? It's all about what's in it for you, okay? And if you feel like the person talking to you is talking just to you, that is an instant connection and it's instant engage. So again, just talk to one person. Sometimes if you can use the word you instead of me, we, I, us, or our, it's so much more powerful. Instead of, we have 5 tickets to give away, it becomes you have 5 chances to win. So the intimacy of the medium, the reason to engage immediately because of the short attention span, the what's in it for the listener immediately, and talking to one person, I think, are very, very important. The last thing is the importance of visual language. The more visual the language you use to describe things and make a word picture and the person can see it in their mind's eye, the more powerful it is. So, for example, if you tell someone it's a beautiful sunset, that's never as good as, look out the window, it's a tangerine sky.
Valerie, this is so chock full of great advice, almost life advice, actually. And especially this last section here about knowing who you're speaking to and making sure that's the you and that they feel like you're, giving them something that they could really sink their teeth into, especially descriptive language like tangerine sky. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask about your opinion around source voices. When somebody is creating a story, whether it's on Swell or a podcast or traditional radio, and they have a source voice out there to bring in, to weave into the sounds so that you actually know what they're saying, and then you're kind of bringing in this extra layer. Sonically, it's beautiful, but also just from the perspective of hearing multiple voices, it brings credibility sometimes. How do you feel about making that decision as a creator, somebody who's doing audio, they're doing a story, and when do you quote somebody and when do you decide to get their voice involved in the actual conversation? I've always wondered about that, and I think it's applicable to so many people who are creating conversations. And you and I are going back and forth, obviously. This is a conversation about a conversation. But if I was doing a story about really bad weather in Los Angeles and I wanted to talk to somebody whose house was destroyed by a tree, I could talk about that person, but I could also run over there and put my phone next to their mouth and have them speak. And there's a lot of value to that, but it's also effort and time. So when do we make that choice to make that extra step and do that extra mile to get that new texture into the conversation?
This is a really good question. Let's go back to the thing you said at the beginning, which is the essence of powerful communication and storytelling. 100%. Tell the truth. Make it matter. Never be boring. So let's look at the never be boring part. I can remember running a newsroom and having journalists put on lots and lots of audio that was boring. And if you are interviewing somebody who is reading off a press release or who is nervous or just is not very articulate, has a speech impediment, is difficult to understand, and you've got audio of that person, sometimes it's better for you to paraphrase or you to say better what they said than it is to have their actual voice on. So it's about never be boring. That's the crux of it, and that's the core of it. Who says it best? What is the way to get the story from your idea in your mind and what your eyes are looking at? What is the best way to get that into the minds of the people who are going to be taking in this information, who are the listeners and the viewers? Now, the best part about the world we are in today is that while it is great to go out on a story and it's wonderful to sit in a room with somebody, you can also do this long distance. You can do it via Zoom or any of the plethora of methods that we have technically to work remotely and talk with people. Just, Deborah, as you and I are talking now, you're in one place, I'm in another, and we're really having a conversation. And we don't necessarily need to be in the same room to do that. It's not as good, but it works. So the thing is it relevant? Does it matter? And is it boring? And these are the things that you need to look at when you're creating content for audio or video or, quite frankly, any media right now.
Wow, this is like a masterclass. It's so wonderful to hear your clarity. I want to ask about audience now that we're talking about voices. more and more people are socializing, quote, their content so that they can get feedback. And it's run into a wall, in my opinion, because it's all about likes and downloads. But it's not about true engagement. It's not about actually knowing what the user is or the consumer is feeling and ingesting and processing by what you've said. I spent a lot of time learning about the tools of media literacy, and in fact, I taught it in 2017. So I really understand, the sort of the bias that people have in their ears when they're trying to hear something that confirms who they are, right? Confirmation bias. But how much do you think with this new media that we're creating that is inclusive of an audience's voice? What do you love about that, and what do you not love about that? And what do you think is positive when it comes to bringing in the voice of the layperson, but how much does that obfuscate the importance of just the clarity of the story? And we're talking about, I guess, opinion versus fact, truthiness versus anecdotal stuff. Like, this is all a bit of a soup, but to tease it out again, I want to hear your thoughts about audience voice and when it's great to integrate that. And I'm biased right now, of course, because I've been working with Swell for 3.5 years, and I'm excited about the disruption we're providing for the podcast world. But for the larger community in general, I think to be asked to talk about something you're listening to is quite a new experience. So what are your thoughts on that?
Deborah, it always goes back to story and what's in it for me. And truth always engages. You know, if somebody hears something that feels authentic, their ears perk up. People are very, I think right now, numb to fake, phony. They're very, very hungry for authenticity. They're hungry for things that can further their life. You know, how can my life be better or more interesting if I listen to this? People come to media, social media, commercial and non-commercial radio, podcasts. The reason they come, and even reading articles, is that they want to be informed, entertained, inspired, persuaded, or just simply if they feel alone, they want to be connected. They want to escape the boredom. They want to not feel lonely or alone in the world. So part of what we do, humans are very, very tribal. And part of what we offer in broadcasting and podcasting, and right now I'm doing a lot of work with helping people who are print journalists come to audio media. So some of my clients include the Condé Nast Global portfolio. So I'm working with the New Yorker and different magazines and helping those podcasters who really have been writing and communicating for the eye learn how to communicate for the ear. But it's really about touching the heart and soul and mind of a human being. So if somebody is hungry to learn and they just want to check into media for information, what's going on? What do I need to know? And in fact, Frank Magid and Associates did, this study, and it turned out it was health, heart, money, and connectedness that people really would always pay attention to. The first thing people want to know in the morning when they wake up is, the world safe? Is my world okay to go out there and live my life? Did the economy tank? Did they drop a nuclear bomb somewhere? What's happening in the world? Do I have my job today? Is my family safe? Are my friends okay? Is everything all right? And that's the first thing they want to know. And after you can kind of give them enough information so that they know the world is safe, then they go on to wanting to know what's going on, what's happening. I was asleep for 12 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours. What's happening in the world? And people want to know. The next thing is, and this is one of the reasons why they come to radio and podcasts also, is for talkable topics. Many people, not of course anybody listening right now, but many people don't have fascinating lives. They go to their jobs, they're in marriages, they're raising kids, but their lives are pretty mundane and normal. And in order to be interesting to one another, the number one marriage killer is boredom. The number one relationship killer is no more surprises, And when they interviewed people who had been married for 50 years or longer, one of the things that came up as a core factor in making those relationships successful was, and both parties would say it, he still surprises me. She still surprises me. And the other one was, he makes me laugh. And of course, humor is key. If you make a listener laugh, You really do own them. And all of the programs that are very, very successful often have humor in them because that is part of entertaining. The other thing is when you laugh, of course, your brain is flooded with dopamine and you can take in a lot more information when your brain is in that state, which is why the funny teacher or the stand-up comedian can get through to you on topics that maybe you wouldn't be open to listening to in normal circumstances. But finally, the shows that are successful, the things that really pick up traction, are basically strains that people hook into where they feel connected to a host. They feel like they know that person. In fact, the highest praise you can ever get on the air or in a podcast is when a total stranger comes up to you and says, I've never met you, but I feel I know you because I've heard you. And that is about the highest praise you can get. And sometimes it's just companionship and company that people want. And talkable topic when they sit down at that dinner table to not bore their partner, or when they get to work and somebody says, hey, did you hear that thing that happened? And everybody leans in because now you have something interesting to say. So when we train broadcasters and podcasters, offering a talkable topic is something that's really important, something that people will repeat and talk about and have opinions on.
Well, you are really singing my song here. Authenticity, voice, listening, responding, all these things are so critical and vital to enabling forward movement with people. When sometimes we communicate in a spiral, but we have to really build on each other's intelligence. I think it's critical right now. There's so many ways to access information and news, but we have to find sources that we trust, that we feel like we're actually in community with, in conversation with. I've been sort of watching the news cycle here on Swell, how people really do some slow news cycles here where they really dive into conversations so that we really iterate around something that's new, as opposed to just letting it be frozen in a broadcast. It becomes its own live organism. Really interesting to have your voice here. I hope you have some of your students come back here and practice some of their audio and public speaking in a place like this, because we will listen deeply and hopefully respond. So it's a great place to experiment, be messy, improve, keep audio journals and things like that. Really happy you've come to Swell, and thank you so much again for your expertise and your time.